Now, I know that Game Week 24 isn't even over yet, but if you know me, you know that doesn't stop me making some FPL content. And in this video, I'm going to go through players to buy and avoid ahead of double Game Week 25. I feel like the first player I have to talk about in this video before we get into anything else is Chris Wood. Obviously, the man of the game week so far. A hat-trick in a 7-0 win. Yeah, incredible. Incredible sort of bounce back, I guess, for Nottingham Forest. I think he actually went down in price going into game week 24 with the amount of people that sold him. I believe he went down from 7.1 to 7 million. And I wanted to talk about him because, well, I think he's amazing, number one. And number two, I actually think a lot of people probably would have sold him to get Cody Gakpo in. And quite honestly, I think with the projection for double game week 24, likely meaning a Liverpool double game week, it wasn't a bad decision in my mind to do that. And in hindsight, if you sold Chris Wood to get Gakpo, I think it's really unlucky, to be honest. The logic for the decision was right. And to be honest, who knows what Gakpo could do in his second game, right? But yeah. Chris Wood's obviously done the business so far this season. 17 goals from 24 starts. He's obviously on penalties for Nottingham Forest. But one thing I would say, Fulham away up next is just an okay fixture. And then he's got Newcastle at St James's Park, who, to be fair, have not done very well against Bournemouth and Fulham there recently. Arsenal, Man City after that. And then it gets on to Ipswich after that. So after the Fulham game, there's a few tough fixtures. And with the likes of Wissa, for example, for a cheaper price, having better fixtures, you know, there could be opportunity maybe to actually get rid of him, despite the fact he's just scored a hat-trick. So, yeah, I can see sort of both sides of the coin with Chris Wood, but I just wanted to give him respect. He's in my team. What a legend he's been. So I think the main news going into game week 25 is that it's likely to be a double game week. Well, it's not likely. It's definitely going to be a double game week. But it all depends on the teams that progress through to the later stages of the Carabao Cup. So what I've got here is from Rob T FPL. I use Rob T FPL for my projected goals and clean sheet odds if you've ever watched any of my live streams. And what Rob does is he puts betting data. He makes betting data useful for FPL, basically. And what we've got here is a percentage likelihood of teams that could potentially double in Game Week 25. So most likely is that it's going to be Villa and Liverpool. They have a 60% chance of doubling. Fulham and Spurs have a 25.3% chance of doubling. Villa, Liverpool, Arsenal and Chelsea. So we could see 4 teams potentially doubling. That's at 10% likelihood. And then Fulham, Spurs, Arsenal, Chelsea doubling could be 4%. There's a 4% chance. So, you know, there's a potential that we could see 2 teams doubling, or actually, in some cases, if some scenarios play out, we could see 4 teams doubling. Now, I know we're going to know the answer to this for Game Week 25 when the deadline actually comes about. I'm recording this video early, so I'm talking about, you know, the projections that we've got. The cup games still need to happen. And I've got a really useful graphic here from FPL Focal. Full credit to Oscar for this one. I'm not going to plagiarize his stuff. I'll leave a link, in fact, to his channel in the description. I imagine most people watching this video would probably have heard of FPL Focal already. But what he's done here is a really good graphic that shows you the fixtures that each potential double game week team could have. So most likely are Liverpool and Aston Villa. Liverpool will play Aston Villa and Wolves at home. Aston Villa will have Liverpool at home and Ipswich at home as their 2 fixtures. If Chelsea double, it'll be Brighton and Arsenal. If Arsenal double, it'll be Leicester and Chelsea. Fulham will have Forest and Tottenham will have Man United and Fulham. So with that double game week in mind in 25, I imagine a lot of people watching this video will have activated their assistant manager going into game week 24. Certainly, you're not alone there. I've done that. And I'm just thinking of a good way to play the assistant manager. Of course, if you've already got Arnie Slot, you're not going to want to change him, right? Wolves and Aston Villa, you may as well stick it on him and keep it with him for Game Week 25. But if you've got it on David Moyes, I quite like the opportunity of switching it to Unai Emery. Now, with the logic that I've gone for with David Moyes, is I felt that the upside, should your manager beat a team higher than them in the table, the bonus points on offer, etc., they're so big that I think I'm not a very risk-taking FPL manager, right? But even I think it's worth taking a bit of a punt on your assistant manager, or at least putting them in a position where they've got a good game where they could score lots of points from. And I think with Moyes in Game Week 24, he's obviously got Leicester, who I believe he's just beaten 3-0. and then Liverpool. So you've got the game that you'd be expected to win, where points should happen, and then a game where it's a punt, and you are kind of targeting the bonus. And it's the same case with Unai Emery for Game Week 25. And if you just look at the odds, that's the most likely one to happen. So I'm going to focus on that. I quite like the thought of going from Moyes to Emery, because again, you've got the good fixture and then a tough one where the bonus points are potentially there. And also, Unai Emery, where's his price? He's 0.8 million. So he's quite a lot cheaper than Slot. For me personally, I don't actually have enough money to get Slot in my team anyway, which is why I partly went for Moyes in the first place, alongside being trebled up on Liverpool. And also liking the fact that, you know, taking a punt on an assistant manager could be a good decision. So yeah, first up for Game Week 25, I wanted to talk about the assistant manager. Obviously, if you've got Arnie Slot, there's absolutely no reason to take it off him, right? You leave it on him for Game Week 25 if that double happens. But I do quite like the opportunity of switching it from Moyes to Unai Emery. As we don't know the exact teams that are going to double, I thought I'd cover cover all of them that have a likelihood of double, apart from Chelsea and Arsenal. And I'll talk about the assets that I think are worth picking from those teams. I'll start with Liverpool, and this will probably be the quickest one because they've obviously just had a double, or are having a double right now in Game Week 24. A lot of people will have already invested in their assets, probably be tripled up already, so there's no real opportunity to buy Liverpool players. So I'll sail through these. I think the good options, you've got Salah, Arnie Slot if you want to use your assistant manager, Van Dijk, Trent, Konate, Gakpo. A little interesting one. I think Trent left the field early against Bournemouth with a potential knock. Not sure if that will affect him for game week, well, even the second fixture in Game Week 24, because it's so far away from now, but just one thing to monitor. I think Diaz, Robertson, Alisson are okay, and I'd probably avoid all of the others. And I think, to be honest, there's enough to select from there in the good category that you can quite easily triple up on Liverpool. The next team I wanted to talk about was Aston Villa. With Duran signing for, I think it's Al Nassr he went to, didn't he, in Saudi Arabia, it means that Watkins now has no real competition for his position, although Marcus Rashford has all but been confirmed as a new signing on loan from Man United. So to be honest, I've not actually included Rashford on this list because I'm not sure if he actually gets good minutes for Aston Villa yet, but he could, I guess, potentially provide competition for Watkins in his position. I know Marcus Rashford isn't an out-and-out number 9, but he has played there at times during his career, and you'd imagine there could be potential for sharing of minutes. I don't think so. I think Watkins is firmly first choice number 9 for Villa. And, well, I really like Watkins. I think without competition for his spot, he's going to play 90 minutes pretty much every game. I know he slipped taking the penalty in the Champions League, but I still got a good feeling that he will remain the Aston Villa penalty taker. And yeah, I think he's the outstanding Aston Villa asset and obviously their talisman. Morgan Rogers is, in my mind, the second best. Most people probably got him in their team already. He's obviously really cheap, but Morgan Rogers is a player that suffers a little bit, I think, from his price. Particularly if you've sold him already. I think people might be put off from buying him because he doesn't use up a lot of their budget, if that makes sense. For me, I think Rogers is easily performing on the level of a mid-price midfielder in the game right now, at price at 5 million. And he's also just scored a hat-trick in the Champions League, right? So that's nothing to be sniffed at. He's a great player. I think from Villa, I would probably say Watkins and Rogers are the two I'd be really keen on buying. Outside of that, you got Luca Dean, who I think is probably the outstanding defender, although he is the biggest troll in FPL history. I just like the fact that he's probably the most attacking of the Aston Villa defenders, particularly with Matty Cash, I think, being injured for a few weeks now. And his cross is great. He also takes free kicks, where I think Villa have a chance of scoring from. So I'd probably say Dean is the third best Aston Villa asset, although don't be surprised to be a little bit disappointed in his minutes. Konsa will just be a steady Eddie, not very good from an attacking perspective. And to be honest, I'm also not massively sure Villa are all that good defensively. So hedging your bets on Aston Villa keeping clean sheets, which you'd kind of have to do if you picked Konsa, not sure I'm massively keen on that. And then Emiliano Martinez could be decent as well. But again, that same point around Konsa, it's just whether you believe they're going to keep clean sheets. If you just have a look at the potential fixture. Sorry, that was the wrong screen. Ipswich and Liverpool. So I guess there's a potential clean sheet maybe there against Ipswich, but they probably don't keep one against Liverpool. So I'd say Watkins, Rogers, my standout Villa assets. Luca Dean, Konsa and Martinez, respectable picks, but probably not for me. Another team with albeit slightly lower chances of a double game week are Fulham. They've really impressed me in recent weeks. I know they just went 1-0, last game week lost 1-0 to Man United, but they've just beaten Newcastle United at St James's Park 2-1, but really impressive in that game. Yeah, I've been really quite impressed with Fulham this season, and if they did have a double game week come through, I'd be really tempted to buy a couple of their assets. Raul Jimenez and Anthony Robinson would be absolutely top of my list. I imagine most people might have Anthony Robinson in their team already. I think he's pretty popular, but Raul Jimenez is kind of a fringe player. Some people do have him. Well, this isn't an obvious comment. This is a very obvious comment. Some people do have him, some people don't, right? I think he's a great option if Fulham have a double game week. He's a really nice price point. He might not necessarily be nailed on for 90 minutes every game, but he starts every game. Muniz is definitely an off-the-bench striker option, albeit obviously he scored against Newcastle as well. And Raul Jimenez is on penalties. I really like Jimenez. I think he's going to be, if Fulham double, he's going to be a really popular transfer in. In fact, I would almost go as far to say I'd consider selling someone like Chris Wood for Raul Jimenez if he has a double in 25. And then my other option from Fulham would definitely be Anthony Robinson. He is, well, he's on 10 assists, double-digit assists this season, albeit some of them have been a bit dodgy. I think he's a great option, and in my mind, I would say the two really pickable Fulham players are Raul Jimenez and Robinson. I do think Leno is decent. I probably wouldn't change my keeper to get Leno in, but he will consistently get you saves. Fulham might keep some clean sheets, although I'm not 100% sure of that. Joachim Andersen and Castagna, you know, they offer you a little bit of value there for their defence, but I've got to say, I'm not personally massively keen on them, but I would imagine some people would be buying them. And Iwobi as well. Again, I just don't think he's quite as dangerous as some of the other sub-6 million midfielders in the game. And I think he's not dangerous enough, or so not dangerous, that I probably wouldn't even buy him ahead of a double game week, to be honest. So for me, two Fulham assets to go for, Raul Jimenez and Robinson. Those four in the middle, on the fringe. I personally wouldn't go for them, and I'd probably ignore all the others. And the other team with reasonable likelihood of having a double game week is Tottenham. I think there's really only two pickable players from Tottenham right now, and that's Son and Kulusevski. I think Kulusevski has been the outstanding Tottenham player so far this season, and he's a good price, under 7 million. And Son is, I think he's gone off, to be honest, and I have lots of respect for Heung-min Son. I think he's been a wonderful player, but I do have a feeling he's kind of dropped off a little bit this season. Well, I don't think it's a feeling. I think it's factual. He has dropped off a little bit this season to how he has been playing previously. But he's still the Spurs penalty taker. He's still an elite finisher. And I still think if he doubles in 25, he's going to be amongst the points. So Son and Kulusevski would be my top two Spurs assets, I think. If James Maddison was guaranteed to start for Spurs, I'd put him up there as well. Obviously, Solanke would be up there too. He's injured, of course. I just don't get why Ange is restricting Maddison's minutes. I think when he plays and he's on form, he's one of Tottenham's absolute best players. But I just don't think his minutes are nailed enough where you can actually pick him, to be honest. So I'd put him in the middle. Same with Pedro Porro. You know, I think he's great from an attacking perspective. He will do all right if they double. But you've got to back the Spurs defence in order to pick him. And I'm not massively sure I'd do that. For me, one thing I would say is if Romero and Van der Ven look to be both fit for the double, that makes Porro a more attractive prospect because I think that improves Spurs, particularly defensively, massively. You know, the really high line they play with the pace of Van der Ven, and Romero's not too sluggish either. I think they improve things a lot, but without them, I'll probably stay clear of Porro. And then Richarlison, don't know if he's going to be fit yet for Game Week 25. It's a little bit iffy to whether he's even going to be fit for Game Week 24, but if he is fit, he's probably going to get decent minutes, and I would imagine play at the number 9, possibly. He obviously, I guess, did that at times for them last season. So yeah, that would be my view on Spurs assets. I'd say Son and Kulusevski, the pickable two. Maddison, Pedro, Porro, and Richarlison on the fringe. You could maybe go for their goalkeeper, but I'm not massive on him, to be honest. I'd probably ignore all the others. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating. I'm very conscious I'm talking about teams that have a potential double game week rather than actually having a double game week. But I know these score with these Saturday videos, right? People like to watch FPL stuff on a Saturday, and those are the hot topics to talk about. So that's my opinion on the best players from the team with a likely double in 25. There are other assets I would consider looking at as well. The likes of Wissa and Bumo, the Bournemouth midfielders who don't have a double game week. I think they're all perfectly pickable options. But with the fact we're looking at another double game week, you're kind of going to want to focus. I think I should focus on the double game week assets. So that's what I did in the video. Let me know in the comments if there's any players that I missed. And if you haven't already and want to see more content from me, you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in my next video.